Welcome to 10K Tuesday.
It is a bit crowded today for surfing, and I am a part of the crowd problem, and that's why I pulled out. You know, I heard this saying a while back, like, if you're at a poker table, and if you can't spot the sucker, then you are the sucker. I think I'm the sucker out there today. Well, I'm the beginner. Say, hey, by the way, my name is Scott, and welcome here to 10K Tuesday. And, the idea behind this video for 10K Tuesday is I'm supposed to run 10 kilometers every Tuesday, and I have this audacious goal of making $10,000 on a Tuesday, and my vehicle for doing that would be day trading. I've just moved to the beach here within the past year, and I want to learn to surf. I'm 49 years old, and, I live right here at it. They'll lend you surfboards at the freaking library. Why not give it a try? So, it's a Saturday as I'm filming this, and it is really crowded. And one cool thing about surfing is you come up with all these metaphors for life when you're out there. One of the things that I've come across is you don't take every wave. Because in order to hop on a wave, you got to exert a lot of energy, and it just might not work out. You could hit somebody, and you really got to pick and choose the wave that you want to ride on. And that right there certainly applies to day trading. But, any kind of thing, anything that you want to hop in and exert yourself in, and I guess expect a return on that investment of your time and your effort and your energy. But at any rate, I almost hit somebody out there, and he was really cool about it, But, so, I think I'm just going to have to be satisfied with coming out here and getting a little wet. And, if a space is super crowded, you either really need to know what you're doing, or you need to step back and get a game plan. For example, there's nobody surfing over here. Those look like pretty good waves. Maybe that would be a better idea. I just know this particular space is easier for me to get to. Transportation-wise, getting the board here, the parking, so on and so forth. But it might be worth looking into getting into that area. I don't know. Metaphors for all sorts of things, business, opportunities. I see why surfing appeals to so many people. Plus, it's just fun, When you get on the freaking board and you ride it from point A to point B, that's really cool. And then I imagine at some point you're like, hey, I wonder if I can get a trick in on this, So there's an evolution, there's levels. I'm in the try to get from point A to point B standing up. And you know what? And when I almost hit the guy, I was actually riding a wave. I was like, yeah, I got it. Oh, shit. So we'll figure it out. So today I want to talk about something that I read about called meta-consciousness. And so have you ever been in a conversation with somebody and their conversation is so low and depressing? You're like, oh my God, get me out of here. Let somebody's phone ring or something. Like, I can't stand this. This is just killing me. And you might think it's the person that you're talking to, but it's really the subject in which they're talking about. And, and I think we've all played that role. We've all been, like, say, belly aching to somebody, and the other person's like, dude, I love you, but I really don't want to hear this shit. Especially like when people complain about their aches and pains. Like, nobody wants to hear that except for a doctor or a nurse, That it's awfully presumptive of me to say that, but I think I'm onto something there. So, what do we do when we're listening to somebody or we're around somebody and they're talking about a bunch of stuff that we don't want to hear? We yearn to change the channel, get out the conversation, like if you're at a party, you're like, oh, there's Johnny over there, I haven't seen him in ages, excuse me. Well, meta-consciousness is stepping out of ourselves and looking at the shit that we're thinking about in that same sort of way. Man, I've been like driving a car and having an imaginary argument. Have you ever had that when you're like, and you actually like look in the rearview mirror, like you could see your lips moving, and like you're having an imaginary argument with somebody that did you wrong, you know, or that person that said some stuff to you, and you're like, and you have a George Costanza moment. You're like, oh, I should have said no, you know. George Costanza was eating too many shrimp, and they're like, the ocean called, they're running out of shrimp. And he's like, the jerk store called, they're running out of you. And then he eventually says, I slept with your wife. So, I mean, like, that's a classic example, now that I really think about it, of just having your thoughts running the train on you, and you're just like, and you won't let it go. Well, metaconsciousness is observing yourself thinking about that shit and saying, hey man, you gotta change the channel. You gotta think about the things that you want to come into your life, the things that you just want in general. Why in the world do we do that? It's so easy to fall into. And I think I know why. I think that lower level thinking, lower level emotions, it's easier to slip into like gravity. It's easier to walk downhill than uphill. And so when you look at a frequency chart, if you guys have seen my videos, you're like, there he goes again talking about the frequency chart. The frequency chart could save your life. If you can, like, the dude that has, like, say, a glucose meter, right? And he's constantly checking that, and he's like, oh, my blood sugar's high, my blood sugar's low. He is monitoring something, you know, physical in his body. But how often do we monitor our frequencies and our emotions? Oh, man, I snarked on that dude. I know why, because I'm feeling fear or anger, or, you know, why do I feel ashamed? Like, you know, oh, well, that's the freaking bottom level. I got to get out of this. And so, well, how can you do that? A quick and easy fix is exercise, quite frankly, because what we want to do is, there's an acronym called DOSE, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, and you activate that good shit by working out and running, or some sort of physical exertion. That's the easiest way. And then, of course, you know, consistent self-talk is pretty good too, doesn't hurt. So that comes back around to the metaconsciousness of stepping outside and you controlling the narrative of what your brain's thinking about. So, metaconsciousness, you know, that's, anyway, when I saw that word, I was like, oh, that sounds so cool, what does it mean? And I hope I did a pretty good job of explaining that. And selfishly, you know, I've got this channel because I feel like, well, one, we're put here to heal ourselves and teach others to do the same, and get to know God better. And also, you know, teaching is the best way of learning. You don't know what you're talking about unless you can teach it. So selfishly, it's an exercise for me, and I hope it's helping at least just one person. If it helps just one person, man, that'd be super cool. It's all worth it. Metaconsciousness. So, so the lower emotions, the lower thoughts, the crappier, you know, if you're having thoughts of fear and you see your mouth moving or anger, step outside. That's anger. That's fear. Look at that shit on the chart and you'll see it's low, right? So check this out. Fear and creativity cannot coexist. All right? So if you're looking at frequency chart, check this out. You'll see it's like a funnel. All right? The lower emotions, the fear, the grief, the anger, the shame, apathy, all right? They're lower on that funnel, right? Now the good emotions, just neutrality is a good emotion. Just neutrality, courage, you know, the enlightenment, all right? That nirvana, right? So, all right, now look at the funnel. All the good emotions are as you get higher, and you'll see an expansion. All right. So with those good emotions, those good frequencies, that expansion comes the creativity. You're going to see more options than you ever saw before. I've looked at that funnel for a long time, and that's one thing that maybe didn't dawn on me as much, or I overlooked. But if you really think about it and study it, how it narrows with the crappier, lower emotions. If you talk to somebody that's in fear or anger mode, and if you want to, a lot of guys have this problem. My wife tells me, like, just because I tell you something doesn't mean I want you to come in and fix it. Well, why? I don't understand, whether it's a man thing or whatever, that if you have a problem, why wouldn't you want to fix it? Why wouldn't you want to look at all the options to resolve the problem and get to a better place? And so when you're in a higher frequency, you're going to attract better options, but two, you're going to see the options. When you remember that show like MacGyver, when he'd always be in a pinch and he'd figure stuff out, and he'd like look around and be like, oh, here's this toothpick, oh, here's this light socket, and he puts it together and somehow makes a vehicle. I don't know, but he wasn't like scared. He just he looked at all the things around him and essentially said, what can I do? Therefore, we go back to creativity and fear can't coexist. Like anybody who made a great work, any artist, any musician, were they in the studio afraid? They were happy. You're going to attract the shit that's on that frequency. And a lot of people, these guys, whether you go back and study the positive mental attitude gurus, from Tony Robbins to Neville Goddard to Bob Proctor, they all talk about tuning into radio stations. If you want to be angry, you're going to be on the anger station, and you're going to attract anger stuff. And so we come back to when you're driving in your car and you're reliving that argument. Well, you're probably going to be a little horn happy, or somebody's going to get horn happy on you. And, and then from there it could get into all sorts of stuff. The road rage thing. I live in the biggest city in Virginia, and a lot of people are really horn happy around here. And I did actually see a fight almost break out the other day. Somebody laid on the horn downtown. The guy got out, and the people got out. They had words, and actually there was a little bit of touching, a little bit of pushing, but they eventually got back in the cars and went away. But anyway, I guess just keep that in mind. I don't want to tell you how to live your life, but man, if you catch yourself having those arguments in the car, that's where they usually have happened for me. You're reliving that shit. Just don't think about that. What do you want? Think about the shit that you want. We can do that. Metaconsciousness. Anyway, that's some cool stuff that I've picked up, and it's I like to think it's working for me, and I hope it helps you out there. By all means, if you're digging what I put out, why don't you consider liking and subscribing to the channel? And I put out something every week, sometimes more when I get around to it. Doesn't cost you a dime, means the world to me. I hope it helps just at least one person out there. And I'm going to figure out this surfing thing. I want to be a dude that does not run into other people, but I also want to enjoy it for myself, selfishly. So I will crack that code. All right, cool. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you later. Bye now. Do not waste this